Hello, I'm Dalton, and this is Sam. We did our project for Rec and Eco on Reed Bingham State Park. We did an educational material project where we created posters and a trail maintenance for the park. The project consisted of a total of 10 hours, and we made four posters and cleaned the trail for about 2 hours.
So our project was at Reed Bingham State Park. It's in Adel, Georgia. It's about 10 minutes off of the highway. It is around 1,600 acres. It's managed by the Department of Natural Resources, the State Parks Division, obviously. There's a 375-acre reservoir that was created by the Little River Bean Dam. It's a really good place to go fishing. A lot of people camp out there, and it just has a lot of pretty facilities there. I personally like to go out there and hike a lot of times. So the first thing we did was make posters. Our stakeholder, Mr. Philip Harrison, requested that we make some posters for the park to throw in the kiosks. He asked us to make posters that would help the public be informed on some local wildlife. And what we personally decided on was non-game and rare species that are on the swap. So one of the things that we noticed when we went out there was that the only information on the kiosk was COVID-19 posters. The the kiosks were pretty much completely empty. There wasn't anything else in there, and all the posters that were in there were from 2020. On the actual hiking trails that we went on, the little signs that actually say things, they'd almost all fallen apart, and it was just a real mess out there.
It's clear they haven't had any maintenance or anyone work on them for a while. I mean, like we said, the only thing was on there was COVID-19, and then the information that was already put on there by the park, which wasn't much, and it has very little to pertain to the local wildlife in the area. So we hope that what we created gets put on there. So here's our first poster we made. We chose the bluefin killifish. It's a local fish in the area on the Georgia State Wildlife Action Plan. It's an S1, which means it's highest priority in the region. They, in terms of where they're at in Georgia, they're only believed to be on the coast and like the very bottom of Florida. But recently, one of an ABAC graduate had discovered one of these in their senior project and based their whole project around it. They found it and they recorded it and they documented a range expansion. So they're a priority species that's located on Reed Bingham State Park that not many people know about. Not even the paper that was written by an ABAC student wasn't ever published. So there's only a couple records of these fish even really being in that park. Um, and when we created it, we emphasized the picture being the main thing. Most people, they don't like to read walls of text. So we made the picture the main focus of it. And we used pretty fonts and icons to demonstrate what each section of the information is. The guy hiking is where you can find them. Obviously, it's kind of hard to find a fish if you don't have nets. You can't catch it with a fishing rod. But we said you can find it everywhere in the reservoir. And then I said where they live, in shallow areas with lots of vegetation. That's what they prefer. And then some general facts about them, like their color morphs. They have like 27 different color morphs, and they're only really found, north of Reed Bingham Dam. They're only found there in 2020. They're very territorial. And then we added a QR code so that they can read more if they want to. Not everyone's going to use a QR code. It's up to them, but it's there for them to read, and it takes them to their Georgia Biodiversity Portal. It's an important website that the DNR owns and has, but doesn't really advertise that often. And it contains so much useful information on non-game wildlife, especially rare ones in the area. So the whole purpose of the poster was to advertise to the public about a fish that not everyone can really see that often, but it's there and it's important. Our next poster was a gopher tortoise. They're a priority species in the region. They do well with our forestry style that we have with the pines and lines and low basal area. Um, they're all in the swamp, just like the killifish. They do really well. They're an indicator species and a keystone species. They build burrows pretty often. They dig pretty far down. They help hundreds of animals in the region and the area. Everyone loves them. Reed Bingham's known for them. So is Alapaha in this region. There's a whole lot of work that goes into gopher tortoises, and there's a whole lot of public outreach and education that goes into gopher tortoises. So everyone knows that gopher tortoises are important, and we should conserve them. So when we made the poster, we noticed at Reed Bingham that the information they have about gopher tortoises is pretty limited on their kiosk. They had a little graph that shows here's where a gopher tortoise is, and here's where they burrow, and there's a gopher tortoise trail. But there wasn't many facts, fun little facts about gopher tortoises you can learn about them. So we added on our poster where you can find them. That's a little hiking dude. You can go and find them. Their burrows on Gopher Tortoise Trail is the name of it. You can go find their burrows, and sometime during the day it'll probably be out. We are where they live in habitat. I added a little section about how they like burnt pine stands. And that's so that when people read it, they read, they like things with fire. Maybe they would have thought that they wouldn't like fire because they're slow. But then they read, it's like, oh, well, fire is actually good for them. They have their burrows and they make the burrows so they can adapt to the fire. That's why I added the little section about the fire. I think it's important to add that, especially when it's an educational poster for the public. And I also include that in facts about me. They spend 80% of their time digging burrows. But without fire, they lose the habitat and food that they so desperately need to eat. And so that was important that we added the fire aspect. That's what makes gopher tortoise habitat is having fire on the landscape. So there was a big emphasis to add fire into the tidbits of information. And we have the biodiversity QR code for them to go visit and read more about the gopher tortoises if they want to. So this is our third poster. It's a tricolored bat. They are a species of concern and they're threatened. They're not doing very good at all. They live normally in North Georgia, but they're getting wiped out by white nose syndrome. It's a fungal disease that spreads in caves. But in South Georgia, we don't have caves as often as we do in North Georgia. So they'll use structure down here rather. But there's not as many of them because there's not as many caves. So the structure that we do have down here is culverts, bridges, things like that. So they really like these structures, and especially Roberts Landing and Reed Bingham State Park is a bridge, and it's right next to the river, and they roost underneath the bridge. And the thing about these bats is they love rivers, and they love their riparian areas. And these areas are important for them. It's where they get their food. They come and drink in the evening, and they come out in dark. But they really like structure, and there's plenty of structure in Reed Bingham near the bridge. So they've been spotted there, and they're threatened. So we included it because they're a bat that's not well known. We included in the facts about white nose syndrome to let people know that hey, they're not doing so good. There's a disease going around. It's to bring awareness on a threatened bat in Georgia that many people might know about. Because a lot of people, when they see bats, are like, oh, look, it's a bat. But they don't actually know what kind of bat it is. And so we made this poster to be put near Red Roberts Landing just for them to see it and say, oh, if I see a bat and it's near the river and it's near this bridge, hey, it's probably a tricolored bat just because they've been spotted here and that's the kind of area they like. And so that was the main goal of creating this poster. And once again, the QR code takes them to the Georgia Biodiversity portal so they can read as much as they want about it.
So we actually created a fourth additional poster. This one was over the bluefin killifish like the first one. It's a little bit different in the fact that it's meant to just be something that you pass by and see out of the corner of your eye, or maybe you see it across from somewhere and see it at a kiosk and walk over and just scan it for the information of it. It doesn't portray any information. It's not made to do it. It just takes you straight to the website where you can learn about it. And this was just another poster that we could put out so you could see something else about a rare species that's in the park. So poster creation was a hassle all on its own. For the four posters, The first one we made to kind of get a baseline took about 3 hours to make. The rest of them all took about 2 hours, which was a lot more time than we were actually expecting to make a poster in the first place. We actually, in our budget, counted in printing cost if we had to take it to Staples or somewheres like that, but it ended up that we just used the school printer. In fact, in our budget, we didn't actually spend any money of the states on this project. Animals were, again, like we said earlier, chosen were on the Georgia State Wildlife Action Plan or SWAP, and the QR codes take you to the Georgia Biodiversity Portal. And it's not really used by anybody except for people here in the YOW, but the public doesn't really know much about it. So we included that to help the public come find it, basically. So we had a misprint, another hassle of making posters, especially with not having a bunch of experience using the poster printer. We set our size wrong. For this poster, we ended up making it 2 feet by 3 feet, I think, and it was a wasted poster. Even though it looks great, there's no use for it at the state park. So we decided to hang the poster in the YOW. And I was going to put it on the ceiling, but I couldn't get it to stick, so now it's on the door out there. So hey, at least the printing was free, and we didn't waste any of the state park's money. So we had an interesting setback during our project. I was looking for jobs, and I was looking on the DNR vacancy, and we found out that our contact, Mr. Harrison, had actually quit. I it obviously doesn't have his name on there, so but I kind of sat there and thought about it. Who else is this going to be? So I actually called Dalton because he was the main contact with Mr. Harrison, and he was actually able to give him a call.
When I called him, it was a no call. It just said, your phone has been sent straight to voicemail. I said, okay, let me try and email him. So I emailed him our poster and said, hey, how's it going? Take a look at these. These look okay. And then within 15 minutes, it was an automated bot sent back said, this email could not be delivered. And then I was like, oh, I think maybe, the poster was too big. And then I got the call from Sam, and it was like, hey, I think Mr. Harrison quit. And I'm like, it's all coming together now. So I called the state park, and they were like, "Does Mr. Harrison still work there?" And I'm like, no, he doesn't work. So then our solution to this issue was we just went there ourselves, took the posters to the state park, gave them to whoever was there. It was Lieutenant Lucas, I think was his name. I said, hey, we're gonna go pick up trash in one of your trails. We have our own grabbers and trash bags. He said, okay, go have fun. Um, that's what ended that, and we were able to still get the project done, and we hope they're gonna put the posters up. But the state park has the posters, so
So when we first arrived to the park, obviously Mr. Harrison wasn't there. So the first thing we had to do was go to the visitor center and make sure that we could actually go put him out and make sure we weren't going to get a ticket for not having a parking pass. So that was the first thing we did, go up to the visitor center. The next thing we did is we went up to the boardwalk trail and did trail cleanup. I've seen a lot of trash out there whenever I've went, so that's where we decided to go. There was just a tiny amount of trash present. I don't know if anybody actually goes out there and cleans it or if it washed away. I don't know. But what little trash there was, we actually did go out and get. We spent about 2 hours walking the trail and picking up trash. There was a tree down on the boardwalk. We had to crawl under it and crawl back, but we cleaned everything off of the boardwalk, whether it be trash or sweet gum balls. We got it all. Most of the end of the trail was actually underwater. We couldn't even go to the very, very end of the trail. There was again a lot of tree debris, and a tree had actually fell over the boardwalk, and again we had to crawl under that. But it was cool seeing all the resurrection fern on it.
overall, even with the setbacks, our project went well. We made the posters and got them to the park, and we cleaned up trash for 2 hours. So we met the objectives that the original stakeholder gave us, and we completed them.